Welcome to Living Your Senior Life, the podcast that helps you navigate your senior years with confidence, joy, and practical advice. We're so glad you're here today. Spring is one of the most beautiful times of year, but if you're dealing with sneezing, congestion, itchy eyes, or that foggy, exhausted feeling that seems to arrive right along with the blooming trees, you are not alone. Today we're talking all about spring allergies after 50, why they can feel different than they used to, what symptoms to watch for, which treatments are actually safe for older adults, and some simple things you can do at home to feel better. Whether allergies are something you've dealt with your whole life, or something that seems to have shown up out of nowhere recently, this episode is for you. Before we dive in, a quick note. The information shared in this podcast is intended for general informational purposes only, and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult your doctor or healthcare provider before starting any new medication or making changes to your health routine, especially if you have existing health conditions or take prescription medications. Everyone's health needs are different, and what works for one person may not be right for another. So grab a cup of coffee, tea, or your water, get comfortable, and let's talk about how to take back spring and enjoy the season you deserve. Let's dive in.
So, picture the scenario for a second. It is finally spring. We are completely done with the gray skies. The frost is melting. The days are getting longer.
Oh yeah, the best time of year.
Right. You step out onto your front porch, coffee in hand, ready to just embrace the renewal of life, and then your face absolutely explodes.
Yeah, not exactly the peaceful renewal you were hoping for.
Not at all. It honestly feels like a personal betrayal by nature. We're talking about the paradox of spring today, because it is objectively beautiful, but for a massive chunk of the population, it is the season of absolute misery.
Sneezing, the congestion, eyes feeling like someone rubbed them with sandpaper.
Exactly. But here's the thing that really trips people up, and it's the hook for our deep dive today. I was reading through our stack of research, looking at the source material, which is a guide called Managing Spring Allergies After 50, and I kept seeing this specific complaint from people who are 50, 55, 60.
The adult onset crowd.
Right. They're saying, I never used to have allergies. I spent my 30s rolling around in the grass. Why am I suddenly miserable now?
It's the classic wait what moment.
Yes, it's so confusing because I think most people assume allergies are something you're born with, or maybe you develop them as a kid and then, grow out of them. But suddenly you hit 50 and you're dealing with hay fever for the first time.
Or maybe you always had mild sniffles, but now it feels like a full-blown sinus infection that just won't go away.
Right. So our mission today for this deep dive is pretty straightforward. First, we want to validate you. You aren't imagining it. Things actually are changing. We need to explain why your body is doing this.
And crucially, we need to do a serious safety audit of your medicine cabinet.
Yes.
Because the research shows that the allergy meds you've been taking for decades might actually be dangerous for you now.
That part actually shocked me. We're going to get into some specific brand names that I literally have in my cabinet right now that I apparently need to throw away.
It is surprising, but the science is really clear on this.
And finally, we've got some lifestyle hacks to help you survive the pollen explosion without, sealing yourself in a plastic bubble until July.
Which is the goal. We want you out there enjoying the flowers, not hiding from them.
Exactly. So let's unpack this biological mystery first. I think the most frustrating part for people is the confusion. I always thought that as you got older, your immune system got weaker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, shouldn't it be too tired to attack pollen? Why is it suddenly freaking out over some birch trees?
It is counterintuitive, right? We tend to think of aging as a gradual slowing down of bodily systems. And in some ways, regarding fighting off new viruses, that's true. But the immune system's aging process is complex. Researchers call it immunosenescence.
Immunosenescence. That sounds like a heavy metal band.
It really does. But think of it less like the system shutting down and more like a remodeling of the house. As we age, the immune system loses its regulation. It loses that really fine-tuned control it had in your 30s.
So it's less precise.
Exactly. It becomes dysregulated. So on one hand, it might be slower to react to a flu virus, which is why we worry about infections in older adults. But on the other hand, it becomes more reactive to harmless things.
Wow.
It starts identifying innocent bystanders, like tree pollen or grass, as major threats.
So it's like a security guard who's been on the job way too long, gets a little jumpy, and starts tackling the pizza delivery guy because he thinks it's an intruder.
That is the perfect analogy. The pizza guy is just holding a box of pepperoni, or in this case, a grain of pollen, and your immune system just goes full SWAT team on him.
Okay, so the software is glitchy, but what about the hardware? Because the research mentioned physical changes in our noses too.
Yes, and this is a big one that people completely overlook. We have to talk about the dryness factor.
See, I usually associate allergies with being wet, runny nose, watery eyes. Why is dryness a trigger?
Because moisture is your shield. Your nasal passages are lined with mucus. I know, it's gross to talk about, but it's vital.
That's necessary evil.
Right. That sticky layer traps pollen, and tiny little hairs called cilia sweep it out of your system before it causes trouble. It's like a self-cleaning oven.
Okay, I'm with you.
But as we get older, our mucous membranes naturally dry out. That protective layer gets thinner. The self-cleaning mechanism just slows down.
So the pollen isn't getting swept out.
Right. It lands. And because there's no mucus to trap it, it sticks directly to the tissue. It sits there and irritates the lining, causing inflammation much faster than it would have 20 years ago.
That makes total sense. But I noticed the research pointed a finger at something else causing dryness too. Our other medications.
This is where the plot thickens. If you look at the most common prescriptions for people over 50 blood pressure medications, diuretics.
Which statistically a huge portion of our listeners are probably taking.
Exactly. A common side effect of many of those drugs is drying of mucous membranes. So you have a natural aging process drying you out, compounded by your daily meds drying you out even more.
It's a double whammy.
It really is.
Yeah.
You've got a compromised physical barrier and a jumpy immune system. It is the perfect storm for adult-onset allergies.
And for women, there's another layer to this, right? The source material mentioned hormones.
Yes, we definitely can't ignore the hormonal factor. Menopause is a significant trigger. Estrogen plays a huge role in regulating inflammation and mucus production.
Oh, interesting.
So when those levels drop or shift, you often see women who never sneezed a day in their life suddenly carrying tissues everywhere in their mid-50s.
And what if you already have something like asthma or COPD?
Then the stakes are much higher. Those conditions can amplify allergy symptoms, and conversely, allergies can trigger asthma flare-ups. It's an interconnected system.
Okay, so we've established that the why is real. You aren't crazy. Your body is just changing. The security guard is jumpy, and the doors are unlocked.
Right.
Now let's move to the what, because this is another area where I tripped up every single year. It's mid-April. I feel terrible. How do I know if it's this new allergy situation or if I just have a lingering cold?
The detective work phase. It is easily the most common question doctors get in the spring. Is this a virus, or am I allergic to my yard?
It feels like a gamble. So break it down for us. What are the dead giveaways?
There is one golden rule that usually clears it up. Colds hurt, allergies itch.
Colds hurt, allergies itch. I like that. Simple.
Yeah, if your throat feels like you swallowed broken glass, or it's raw and sore, that's almost certainly a virus. But if your throat feels scratchy or like you swallowed a feather and you can't quite cough it up that tickle, that's allergies.
And the eyes?
Same thing. If they are burning, red, and crucially itchy, that is the hallmark of allergies. Viruses can make your eyes water, but they rarely make you want to claw them out.
Okay, what about the stuff coming out of your nose? The research was pretty graphic about this.
We have to talk about this knot. It's the clearest indicator.
All right, let's go there.
In allergies, the discharge is almost always clear and watery. Think of a faucet being left on a slow drip. It's annoying, it's constant, but it's clear.
Okay, clear equals allergies.
Right. If you are blowing your nose and seeing thick, yellow or green mucus, that is usually a sign of an infection, a cold or sinus infection. Your body produces that color when it's actively fighting bacteria or viruses.
And what about a fever?
Never with allergies. If the thermometer goes up even 1 single degree, you are fighting a bug, not a plant.
And duration is the other big one, right? Because I feel like colds have a script they follow.
Exactly. A cold has a narrative arc. You feel bad, you get worse, then after about 7 to 10 days, you get better. Allergies, they have no script. They just hang around as long as the trigger is there.
So if you've been sick for 3 weeks...
Right, and it gets worse every time you go for a walk, that's not a cold.
Okay, so let's assume we've done the detective work. We're itchy, we're clear, we're miserable, we know it's allergies. We're over 50. We marched to the pharmacy to get relief. And this is where the research honestly scared me a little bit, because the stuff I grew up taking, apparently I shouldn't be taking it anymore.
This is the most critical part of this deep dive. If you take nothing else away from today, listen to this. The medication you grabbed off the shelf in your 30s might be actively dangerous for you now.
We're talking about the medicine cabinet audit.
Correct. There is a medical guideline called the Beers Criteria.
Beers criteria, like the drink.
Spelled the same, but named after a geriatrician, Dr. Mark Beers. It's a list of medications that are potentially inappropriate for older adults because the risks just outweigh the benefits. And one of the most popular allergy meds in history is right at the top of that list.
We are talking about the pink pill, Benadryl, or
But-
generically diphenhydramine.
That's the one. And I know people love it. It works fast. It knocks you out so you can sleep. But for anyone over 50, and especially over 65, it is a major red flag.
Why? I always thought of it as the safest, most basic thing on the shelf.
It's a first-generation antihistamine. The problem is that it has a really strong anticholinergic effect.
Okay, you're going to have to translate anticholinergic for us non-doctors.
Simply put, it blocks a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. This chemical is essential for muscle control, balance, and memory. When you block it in an older brain, you don't just get sleepy, you get confused, you get brain fog, and most dangerously, you get physically unstable.
Unstable, like dizzy.
Unstable, like falling down the stairs.
Oh.
The risk of falls skyrockets for older adults on Benadryl. You wake up groggy, your coordination is shot, and down you go.
That is terrifying. You take a pill for a runny nose and end up with a broken hip.
It happens way more than you think. And because of the confusion element, people sometimes don't even realize it's the pill doing it. They just think they're getting old.
So general rule, Benadryl goes in the trash.
For daily allergy management, yes, get rid of it.
Okay, so Benadryl is out. What about the other heavy hitter, the one people take when they are completely stuffed up, Sudafed, pseudoephedrine?
The decongestant danger. This is another major caution area.
Now, Sudafed isn't about falling down, right? This is a heart thing.
Exactly. Think about how a decongestant works. You have swollen tissue in your nose, blocking the air. Pseudoephedrine works by clamping down on your blood vessels, vasoconstriction. It shrinks the vessels, the swelling goes down, you can breathe.
Which sounds great. That's what I want.
It is great for your nose. But the drug doesn't know to stay in your nose. It travels through your whole bloodstream, constricting blood vessels everywhere.
Which increases pressure.
Basic plumbing. You narrow the pipes, the pressure goes up. If you are one of the millions of people over 50 managing hypertension, taking a decongestant is essentially fighting a war against your blood pressure medication.
Wow.
It can cause significant spikes and even heart palpitations.
So if you have high blood pressure, anything with a D at the end of the name like Claritin D or Zyrtec D is off limits.
Generally, yes. Unless your doctor specifically clears it and is monitoring you, it's just not worth the risk for a stuffy nose.
Okay, I feel like we've just emptied the entire medicine cabinet. No sleepy pink pills, no decongestants. What is left? Are we just supposed to suffer?
Not at all. The science has actually gotten much better. We just need to upgrade to second-generation antihistamines.
These are the ones like Claritin, Zyrtec, Allegra.
Right, loratadine, cetirizine, fexofenadine. These drugs were engineered specifically to solve the Benadryl problem. They're formulated so they don't cross the blood-brain barrier as easily.
So they stop the allergy, but they leave the brain alone.
Exactly. They block the histamine without messing with your acetylcholine. So no confusion, no dizziness, no fall risk. They are much safer for daily use during the season.
And what about the congestion? If we can't take the oral decongestants that spike our blood pressure, how do we breathe?
You treat the site of the crime. You use a nasal corticosteroid spray, Flonase, which is fluticasone, or Nascort, triamcinolone.
I've always been a little confused about these. Is it safe to shoot steroids up your nose every day?
It is. Because you spray them locally, very little of the drug gets into your main bloodstream. It calms the inflammation right where it's happening, in the nasal lining, without spiking your blood pressure or racing your heart. It is the gold standard for allergy management now.
So the strategy shifts from bomb the whole system to targeted strikes.
That's a great way to put it. Use a safe daily pill for the itch and a targeted spray for the stuffiness. And don't forget eye drops.
Right. The notes mention drops specifically for allergies.
Yes, drops containing ketotifen like Zadidator. If your eyes are the main problem, treat the eyes directly. You might not need a pill at all.
This is such a shift in mindset. It's about being smarter with the tools. Okay, let's pivot. We've sorted the meds. Now let's talk about how to live your life. The research introduces this concept of pollen load. I really liked this because it makes it feel like a math problem we can actually solve.
It is a game of numbers. Think of your allergic threshold like a bucket. Your body can handle a little bit of pollen, maybe the bucket is half full, without freaking out. But once that bucket overflows, you get symptoms.
So the goal isn't zero pollen.
That's impossible unless you move to the moon. The goal is just to keep the level in the bucket low enough that you don't overflow.
Reducing the load. Okay, let's talk about the de-pollen routine. What's the first thing we should do when we come inside?
Shower. Immediately.
Immediately. Like before dinner.
Not pass go, do not sit on the couch. You have to understand the physics of pollen. It is microscopic, and it is spiky and sticky. It is designed by nature to cling to things. Bee legs, bird feathers, and your eyebrows.
And my hair.
Especially hair. If you go for a nice spring walk, you are basically a walking pollen mop. If you come inside and sit on your bed, you have just transferred all that pollen onto your pillow. Now you're going to sleep in it for 8 hours.
That is a horrifying image.
It's the #1 reason people wake up congested. You were marinating in pollen all night. So rinse off. Or at the very least, change your clothes and wash your face and hair before bed.
Speaking of beds, there's a laundry rule here too.
Yes, wash your bedding weekly. And this is key. Use hot water, at least 130 degrees Fahrenheit.
Why so hot? I usually wash everything on cold to save energy.
For your clothes, cold is fine. But for allergy bedding, you need 130 degrees because that is the temperature required to denature the proteins.
Denature.
It means you physically break down the structure of the allergen protein so your body no longer recognizes it. Plus, that heat kills dust mites, which are often a co-conspirator in spring allergies. Cold water might rinse some of it off, but to neutralize the threat, you need heat.
Got it. Sheets get the lava treatment. Now, environment. We all love opening the windows to get that fresh spring breeze.
Don't do it.
Hard pass.
Especially in the morning. Pollen counts typically peak between 5:00 a.m. and 10:00 a.m. That's when the plants release their payload. If you open your windows then, you're essentially inviting the enemy inside. Keep them closed, use the AC, and if you want to get fancy, get an air purifier.
The research specifically mentioned HEPA filters.
Right. High-efficiency particulate air filters. This isn't just marketing. To be called HEPA, it has to capture particles as small as 0.3 microns. That catches almost all pollen, mold, and dust. Put one in your bedroom. It creates a safe zone where your immune system can rest and recover while you sleep.
I love the idea of a safe zone. Okay, 2 more hacks that I thought were clever. One involves fashion, the other involves petroleum jelly.
The fashion hack is sunglasses. Wraparound ones are best. It's simple physics. They act as a windshield for your eyes, blocking the wind from blowing pollen directly onto your eyeballs.
And the petroleum jelly, this is the barrier bomb trick.
This is an old-school trick, but it works wonderfully. You take a tiny bit of petroleum jelly, Vaseline, and dab it just inside your nostrils.
Sounds kind of gross.
It feels a little weird at first, but the jelly is sticky. It acts like flypaper. It traps the pollen grains entering your nose before they can travel up in your nasal cavity and trigger a reaction.
Yeah.
It reduces the load entering your system.
Cheap, drug-free, and effective. I like it. And finally, the neti pot.
Saline rinses. They physically flush the irritants out. It's not glamorous, but it provides instant relief for many people. But I have to give a massive safety warning here.
Oh, right, the water type. I feel like people brush this off.
You cannot brush this off. Never, ever use tap water in a neti pot.
Why? It's safe to drink.
It's safe to drink because your stomach acid kills things. Your sinuses don't have that protection. There are organisms in tap water, specifically amoebas, that are harmless if swallowed, but can cause severe, even fatal brain infections if they get into your sinuses.
Okay, that got dark fast, but it's a super important warning.
It's rare, but it happens. Always use distilled water or water that you have boiled for a few minutes and then cooled down.
Distilled water only. Got it. So we have the biology, the meds, and the lifestyle hacks, but we also need to know our enemy. The notes had a section on seasonal timing, because not all pollen is created equal.
This is helpful for anticipating when you'll feel the worst. Generally, there is a pattern. Trees first, then grass, then weeds.
So the early spring sneezers are the tree people.
Exactly. Oak, birch, maple. If you are dying in March or April, it's probably trees. If you feel fine in March but get hit in May or June, that's usually grass pollen kicking in.
And geography dictates the start date.
Oh, hugely. If you are in the South, Florida, Texas, your spring allergies can start in February. Tree pollen starts incredibly early there. In the Northeast or Midwest, you usually get a reprieve until April or May.
But the South has that yellow dust season where everything is covered in pine pollen.
Right. And knowing this helps you plan. If you know you're a grass person and you live in the Midwest, you know June is your danger month. That's when you need to be strict about the windows and the showers.
It's about being proactive rather than reactive.
Precisely. Don't wait until you are miserable to start the meds or the routine.
Fair.
Start when the season starts.
So what does this all mean for us? Let's recap. We've learned that waking up with allergies at 50 isn't a fluke, it's a biological shift. Your immune system is just remodeling.
And because the body has changed, our strategy needs to change. We can't just reach for the Benadryl anymore because of the fall risks and the confusion. We need safer second-generation options like Zyrtec or nasal sprays to protect our blood pressure.
Especially if we have high blood pressure. That connection between decongestants and heart health is something I think a lot of people overlook entirely.
It is the most common mistake.
Yeah.
Please, if you have hypertension, check with your doctor before taking anything with a D at the end of the name.
And we can reduce the misery with simple habits. Showering off the pollen, washing sheets in hot water to denature the proteins, and using that barrier balm. It's not about never going outside. It's about managing the exposure.
It's about adapting.
I was reading the conclusion of the research, and there was a really interesting final thought that I want to leave our listeners with. It was an analogy about reading glasses.
Yes, I loved this. Think about it. When we hit 45 or 50 and our eyes start to change, we don't just squint and suffer. We don't say, well, I guess I just won't read anymore because I'm getting old.
No, we get reading glasses. We get a tool.
Exactly. We accept that the body has changed, and we use a tool to correct it so we can keep doing what we love. Treating allergies should be the exactly same.
That makes so much sense.
Your immune system has changed, just like your eyes. Treating it with specific, updated care new meds, better hygiene is just the next step in staying active. It's not a sign of defeat or decline. It's just a tool to keep you in the game.
That is such a healthy way to look at it. You don't have to suffer through the season. You just need a new prescription, literal or metaphorical.
Right.
So to everyone listening, go check your medicine cabinet, throw out the expired stuff, double check the labels for that D, and maybe buy some distilled water for that Medipot you've been afraid to use.
And enjoy the flowers. Just don't hug them.
Deal. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today. We hope this episode gave you some practical tools to take on spring allergy season with a little more confidence. Remember, seasonal allergies are common, they're manageable, and you don't have to just push through them. The right approach really does make a difference. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to the podcast or share it with a friend or family member who might benefit from it. And be sure to visit livingyourseniorlife.com for the full article with product recommendations, a regional pollen guide, and everything we covered today in one place. And as always, until next time, take care of yourself and live your best senior life.